Okay, I get it. This could be seen as pretty annoying right now. This is like the umpteenth video we've made about Montreal and Martin Necas. But this time, it's not talking necessarily about the trade. It's not talking about this dude heading over to the Montreal Canadiens. It's not talking about a trade price or whatever. It's talking about how maybe the Montreal Canadiens have already made a trade that is better than this. Now, it's kind of cryptic the way I'm framing my sentences here. Yeah, that's called a tease in the business, kids. But today what we're talking about is the idea of a Martin Necas trade maybe already having been done by the Montreal Canadiens. Now, let me explain where this is coming from. Necas, as we know, is a good player. 25 years old, 6'2", 198, right-handed center right wing, signed on till the end of this season. He needs a new contract. He's an offensive forward. He's a speedster. And this previous season, he put up 53 points in 77 games played, lower than the 71 points he had last year in 82 games played. Necas, for all intents and purposes, was not used as much as he could have been. He produced a lot in the playoffs, but that was about it. His 53 points, a steep decline from last year's production. Because the Hurricanes had committed money and time to Seth Jarvis, you could say that Necas' role isn't really as secure as it was this season, where he was the top point guy on the entire Carolina Hurricanes team. It's no longer like that. So the fact is, Necas, who already had this super good year, is on the block, and the Montreal Canadiens are one of many teams that are reportedly linked to him. But let's go out there and read a tweet by VVV that I saw published on my timeline earlier this week that goes out there and talks about how maybe the Martin Necas trade isn't really one the Canadiens need to do. Here is the Draft Plus 5 production for both of these guys. Martin Necas, as a Draft Plus 5 guy, had 78 games played, 14 goals, and 26 assists. That's good enough for a .51 points per game, which totals up to 40 points. Meanwhile, Alex Newhook of the Montreal Canadiens, in his Draft Plus 5, had 55 games, 15 goals, 19 assists for a total of 34 points and a .62 points per game. Habs fans and media are prepared to give the moon for Necas and relegate Alex Newhook to the third line. Now, this tweet did garner some traction. It garnered a whole bunch of responses, 34 to be exact, and a lot of people are going out there and debating this entire thing here. What I wanted to do instead was go out there and compare these guys using the Elite Prospect tool, because I get it, there are people going out there and saying, hey, you're cherry-picking, you're nitpicking Necas' worst statistical season, but ultimately what I think is noteworthy about these two guys being compared to each other is which numbers you decide to go out there and compare. I'm using the Elite Prospects Compare and Contrast tool. It's available on the website if you have EP Ringside and Elite Prospects Premium. It is very, very good. Necas and Newhook, of course, are two guys who are not the same age, so if you adjust everything for similar ages, it becomes very interesting to look at. Necas was drafted in 2017, 12th overall. Newhook, 2019, 16th overall. So 2 years later, around the same draft ranking, I guess you could say. Necas right now is 25, Newhook is 23. Size advantage goes to Necas, he's 6'2", 198, Newhook is 5'10", 190. Interestingly enough, Newhook is almost there weight-wise, but he is significantly shorter. It's kind of funny how that works. You kind of get the idea there that Newhook is a little bit more built than Necas is. And when it comes to the draft season production, when these guys were draft eligible, you had yourselves Alex Newhook put up 102 points in 53 games in the BCHL. Necas, on the other hand, had 15 points in the 41 games in the Czech League. Not really comparable in the slightest, but this is what we were looking at back in that time frame. Then, if you wanted to talk about some of the later on production, Necas played one game at the NHL level at 18 years old. He didn't score any points, but he was in the Czech League, still dominating and still doing well over there. Meanwhile, Newhook dominated the NCAA as a freshman. Fast forward to age 21. This is where Martin Necas has the 41 points in 53 games played that are noteworthy here. Newhook has 30 points in 80 games played. So At 21 years old, things are looking a lot better in Martin Necas' favor, but we have to recognize that Necas did have a pretty big explosion onto the scene right away. He was very good to kick off his NHL career in 2019-20. But as you go further along into the years here, this is where you start to see the season that we had just had. In 22, the season that was talked about on the tweet here. At age 22, Martin Necas in 21-22 had 40 points in 78 games played. At age 22, Alex Newhook had 34 points in 55 games. This was 23-24, the most recently wrapped up season. Now, I'm not saying if you follow this timeline, you want to go by these stats and talk about these numbers. I'm not saying that Alex Newhook is going to have 71 points in 82 games played next season. He would kind of need to pull off a miracle for that to happen, overtaking Suzuki and everybody else on the top power play and doing what he does on the first line. But I will say that for Martin Necas, this is a huge, huge leap from 22 years old, 40 points, 78 games, to 23 years old, 71 points in 82 games. There's no wonder that Martin Necas wants the bag, right? It's totally understandable from his perspective to see him decline the year after, get only 53 points in 77 games played, not be utilized as much, and see your teammates getting all the money. It's not surprising that he's like, okay, well, trade me. Like, I can go somewhere else and be as good as I was in 22-23 getting this amount of points, because just the prior year I was doing really well too, and I exploded 1 year after that. So it makes a lot of sense to me why Martin Necas would be in the position to demand the trade and be in this spot where he wants to get moved, but to compare Alex Newhook to him is a little bit interesting. I'd say it is kind of nitpicked because it ignores the season that Necas just had, but if you're going year by year, hey, this does make sense. Age 22, Newhook had 34 points, 55 games. Necas had 40 points, 78 games. Newhook, if he's going to be like a third, second-line guy next season, I could see him maxing out maybe at 50 points. 50 is like the max, I would say, Newhook is probably able to achieve in 24-25. If he gets anything more than 50, I think we're absolutely over the moon. We, as in Habs fans. Of course, if he gets 70 points, that would be even more amazing, and nobody's really expecting that here. But, you know, people can go out there and dream. Let's go back out there and read some of the replies to this tweet to end off this video here. That's a cherry pick when he went for 70 points in his draft plus 6. Are you expecting the same kind of breakout from Newhook? While possible, it seems unlikely. Also, I think having both would be good for the depth of the Montreal Canadiens of the time. That said, the issue is cost. You're nitpicking Necas' worst statistical season. I'm just using that season because it's Newhook's most previous one. Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. It's right here, age 22. Necas has more skill and thinks the game at a higher level than Newhook. I would not necessarily disagree there. I'd say that Newhook plays with a bit more pace, though. That's kind of where I feel his game has been heading towards in these past few years. But either way, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the compare and contrast between Necas and Newhook, two guys whose names start with N-E, who were drafted in the mid-rounds of the first round of their respective drafts, and who play pretty similarly if you want to talk about point production. I mean, it's all right there. The proof is in the pudding, but let me know your thoughts in the comment section below whether or not the Montreal Canadiens Alex Newhook trade was better than any sort of a Necas trade that you could say the Canadiens could pull off in 2024. Is this even a discussion worth having? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.